This is Hannibal speaking here from the Hannibal TV, and on the line we have two-time WCW champion, two-time WWE World Champion, and he has wrestled for Great North Wrestling many times, but he's coming back to Great North Wrestling next Saturday night, August the 5th in Ottawa at the Earl Armstrong Arena, where he will be taking on Paul Rosenberg. So Sid, it's great to have you on the phone. How are you doing these days?
Man, I'm doing great. It's great you guys from the great northern area has called me back, and I'm looking really forward to coming back to Ottawa and having a great time.
Now, what can we expect from you? Are you still in the same type of shape that you were when we had you before, or now that you're almost at the end of your career, are you winding down a bit on the heavy weightlifting and heavy training that you used to do?
No, Devin, like, today's Saturday now. Saturday's just a little different. Like yesterday morning, I got up, 5 o'clock. Well, I get up at 4:30, 4 o'clock. I'm at the gym at 5. I worked out till 7. I came home, had a little bit of my second breakfast, rested a little bit, and then I drove over to Memphis to my second workout, which consists of an hour of a boxing class, and then I do a lot of unconventional things like the tractor tire and the sled. I push it and pull it. If you know that yourself. There's a lot of different things you do with the sled. When I say sled, that's generic. Generic means a lot of things you could do with it. A lot of rope, just like, again, unconventional. I do all my weight training in the mornings. I do my unconventional stuff in the afternoons or in the evenings. Like this morning, again, got up at 5 o'clock, had breakfast, went over there, and we boxed for 2 hours, and then just worked out, different things that we're trying to work on. A lot of foot drills, a lot of switching from left-handed to right-handed. And then after that, I didn't have to today, but I went ahead and hit weights for about 30 minutes, just some arms and stuff. But now I'm working out every day, twice a day. And to be honest, I think we all get to this point we've maybe lost a step, took a step back. But when I put myself in the surroundings with people of all other ages, I don't really think that I've fallen that far back, and that's not saying that I haven't, but I don't think I've fallen back as far as anyone else to be where I'm at today.
Do you still do an entire workout for your traps? Because Quebecer Pierre, who's also going to be on this event in Ottawa, was telling me that back when you guys used to train together, sometimes you would have a whole workout just to build your traps.
Well, it wouldn't be the whole workout, but it'd be a lot. We do a lot of heavy shrugs, and we do a lot of power cleans, and then we do a lot of wide upright rows, then some narrow upright rows, and sometimes, I still do a lot of that. I tell you what, though, Devin, I tell you, when we get a little older, I can work traps all day long. They're not going to be there like I was, 20 years ago. But still, I did notice that. That's the one thing I really enjoy about these boxing classes, that, boxing really squares your shoulders off. That's why I'm doing it. It's a lot of fast impact hitting. And then your traps, you've never seen a boxer that was in good shape or an athlete that was in good shape that didn't have some traps, because traps just go with hard working out.
So you probably are even more dangerous now than you used to be with this added boxing training that you.
Oh yeah, for sure, Devin. And that's just being straight and being honest. My whole life I boxed, and I took karate. And the one thing and my kids did the same. And what I liked about it was this: that, boxing and karate, it teaches you how to use your left and right hand equally, your left and right foot equally. So, some of these guys have been doing this for a long time. Now, I just started back, this last 6 months boxing again. But, I can box left or right hand. I can lead with my right or lead with my left. And I can change and just a switch of my feet. And these guys have been doing it a long time. They go, man, how long have you been doing that? And I said, well, I've been doing it my whole life. I just started boxing again in the last 6 months. But, it's something fun to do. This place over there is called Memphis Judo and Jiu-Jitsu. They got a bunch of locations. They got locations from here in Memphis, Chattanooga, Jackson, Tennessee. They're really up on their equipment there. But it's just the training's changed a lot, Devin, from when it was just, we just did weight training. I still do my weight training every day, except for today I did a little bit there. But but it's just a great way. And what I try to find too, and you probably do the same thing. Sometimes I just try to find something different if it's to do some type of cardio. And I've never sweated like I do during these classes either. And I sweat really bad, and Carl will tell you that too. But when I get through, I change clothes, and by the time I get to my vehicle, I'm already drenched to sweat again. 'Cause you just don't stop sweating right there, and that's the whole deal. When you work out that kind of intensity, you'll sweat 30 minutes after you get done, and that's what I really like to get out of my workouts.
Yeah, it helps detoxify your system and everything too.
Well, and too, man, after that, now I got to the point, Devin, where today I'd gotten where after we did everything, I went over and did the speed bag, and I started doing the ropes, and then was doing some biceps, and all of a sudden I just felt like, whoa, man, I think this was it. As soon as I went to the dressing room, took my shirt off, I could see my body was already getting chill bumps on it. And what that means usually is, your body does chill bumps for one or two reasons. If you're cold, it clogs off your pores where you don't lose body heat. Or today, in my situation, I had sweated all I could sweat, and I use long sleeve shirts to sweat in. That way, I don't lose as much as I normally would. And so, I mean, that right then, I had probably done as much as I could. So I throw my vitamin water in my big jug that I've got a little ice in. I always carry about 4 or 5 eggs with me. I eat the egg whites, and I have my apple. I have that on the way till I get home. When I get home, I have my, today I had chicken and pasta. But when I see those chill bumps, I know that I pushed myself all the way. I didn't have any more sweat to give, and that's how hard I'm still working out. So, a lot of these guys have, in really great shape. After that hour, they're out of there, but not me. I'm still in there for another hour.
And you brought up that you had your kids in martial arts. How is your son doing that was on Big Brother a few years ago?
He's doing real good. Now Frank was, when he was a kid, he was, and Carl remembers him, he was a super, just athlete, strong kid. Even when he was 15 years old, he could power clean 315. And when guys from the business would come by and visit, or we'd go work out, I said, what is this skinny kid going to do with us? And he'd kill them with power cleans. He was just made for that. Now, he doesn't do that kind of hard workout anymore. He's gotten more into like CrossFit, and he's actually stay real trim. But he's living in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a pharmaceutical rep up there, and he's having a great time right now.
Is there any reason why you never really went into the entertainment industry when you were in your prime in wrestling? Because now you're seeing a lot of wrestlers cross over into movies a lot.
Well, this was the thing, Devin, when I worked for Turner. Matter of fact, that's a good question you asked. The Turner WCW had presented the guy that ran the promotion things for when things came in for like movie parts and stuff like that. His name was Barry Norman, and we still talk. I just talked to him this morning. He lives in Brunswick, Maine. Has a cinema there called Evening Star Cinema. But he was head of promotion, so he got me the gig with the Ninja Turtle the deal, where I was going to be Blaster or whatever in that movie. And Ole Anderson said, no, we can't let Sid take days off to do movies. Give it to Kevin Nash, and Kevin Nash was just, doing that Blaster character, whatever he was doing. No, what was the character?
I think it was Super Shredder in the end.
Super Shredder, that's what it was. Now, and that's what happens. And when I was in the business, and this is great for me, but as far as trying to, attain an acting career, they're not going to give you the days off. You know what I mean? Because the business was a lot different then, Devin. They want you taking days off to get away from the business, It would have worked out fine if I was about to lose a loser league town or I needed some time off, but that wasn't happening then. And so then the other times I had a chance, really to get into movies here in the United States, Devin, we don't have it lucky like Canada. California is it. If you're not in California, it's really hard to do that. And you can ask my son that, as much publicity he got with that thing, he still couldn't really get any more TV gigs, and that's what he was trying to shoot for. Because he actually, after graduating college, before he started med school, he took a few years off and pursued that acting career. And it's just a lot harder than people think, too, Devin. The only person who made that is The Rock. I think a couple of the guys made a few things, but not very many. And I've probably done as many movies as most of the other guys did too. You know, I've done, I don't know, 6 or 7 movies. They weren't big movies. You know, Get Ready to Rumble was the biggest budget film. But I've done some with Kurt Angle, The River of Darkness, and that other silly one with those guys at Pittsburgh. Then done a couple independent films. It's called one called Stranded, where I was, it was a 30-minute horror movie where I was like a Boo Bradley character. I was killing Mockingbird, where I didn't have a speaking part, but I was, through the movie, I really was dead the whole time, and I was saving people, and I wasn't really the monster. I killed the monster in the movie. But that's the thing is, I didn't really have that big of a want to do that either. You know, I had my plan when I got in the business. I wanted to get out around 40 and have a really nice run at that and then get out. Of course, that big nice run was when I broke my leg, and that's what sort of exited me out a little earlier than I wanted to. But other than that, I really no regrets. Again, I wasn't that big movie, want to be in the movie type of person either.
And you mentioned you did the movie with Kurt Angle. How did you get along with him during that filming?
You know, actually, great. You know, I never saw him. Me and Kevin Nash went and did ours at the River of Darkness. It was me, him, and the other cast that was in that part of the movie. We were there for 2 nights, and we never saw Kurt. And then the other movie I did with Kirk in it was an action movie, sort of like type of deal, and I didn't really see him then either. Now I've seen Kirk, you know, on and off through the years, and Kirk's always been a super nice guy. But that's my memory of Kirk being a pretty nice guy.
And when you come next week for the event here, I'm going to do a video shoot interview with you, so I'm not going to get too much into your wrestling career in this interview because this is just kind of a preliminary interview. But why do you think, despite what a nice guy you are from your friends, from what they tell, and from the experiences I've had with you, why do you think some people in the business, such as the Ric Flairs of the world and maybe Tully Blanchards and those types, always act like you were kind of undeserving and they speak about you in a negative way?
Well, you know, I don't know Tully Blanchard at all, other than just seeing him a couple times, and and I just said I really don't know him, but after meeting him and getting to know a little bit more about him, you know, he was really, I don't know, he was pretty plain. It wasn't really that much about him that was great. And then Ric Flair, now the Ric goes back to Ric Flair. I don't know why he has this dislike for me. It goes back a lot to where, one, you know, where situations, you know, Devin, like I didn't wait around for my contracts to run out. I'd go to the office and I'd go, hey, man, Ric Flair is making this much. I deserve twice as much, and that's what they'd give me. So that's why, and that's just being totally honest, that's why Ric Flair hates me, because I always made more money than him, and everywhere we went, he just couldn't, you know, and there wasn't anything wrong with him. It's just we're 2 different type of characters in this business. You know, Ric is an old man, and even then he was an old man wearing a costume because he needed to wear a costume. You know, where, again, if we go back to Ric Flair, me, myself, and I'm not saying this because he says bad things about me, but Ric really isn't that great a worker. He had those 4 or 5 spots, and he wasn't a great worker with everybody. He could only work with a few people. But why they don't like me, other than, you know, probably the real thing is, you know, I had that argument and that fight with Arn Anderson, which is his best friend. And that all, again, started over before we went overseas that period. I just got a huge raise, and I just went in and asked for it, and they gave it to me. You know, so when people can't do that themselves, then you're tend to not, people don't like you. And then the most part in this business too, Devin, most people will say, man, I really like Sid, or, you know, Sid's a really cool, up straight guy and stuff like that. The people that don't like me probably had an argument with me, and I don't lose arguments. I don't lose anything, matter of fact, and so, or fights. And so when people know that and get to argument with me, you know, then they got a different opinion. And sometimes if someone was to say something or do something, you know, I would challenge them. So, or I would stand up and say something to them. You know, so again, I never really did that with Ric. I always was courteous to him. Other than that deal with Arn, and I'm pretty sure that's the main reason. That, and then, you know, that really the whole fight started over. We was all talking one night and said, what's wrong with the business? And I said, the business is wrong. I said, because I said, man, I don't understand the point where, everybody gets their time, and, like right now. And I wasn't saying it was time for me because I was getting a great push. I mean, some other guys that were in the territory that needed a good shot in the arm. Let's give it all to. Let's give everybody a shot in the arm. I said, and even Ric Flair too. I said, but don't not give everybody else a shot in the arm because you're scared somebody's going to pass you up. Now Rick wasn't there, and that's what started the fight with me and Arn that time. So again, it's just sometimes I say the truth, and sometimes if the truth hurts, then you're not going to like me anymore. Now, if you like the truth, then you're going to like me, And I have been like that. I've changed a lot in the last few years, where I don't just say what I mean all the time. It's still hard not to do that, but I get, again, with people like that and the people that don't like me, we probably had some disagreement or somewhere along the line.
And we will ask you to go into that incident more in our video interview with you, because we actually interviewed Vader not too long ago, and he told us about a 10-minute version of the story. So
this is the thing is, and I'm not going to go into it right now either.
Yeah.
Nobody knows a 10-minute version because it didn't fucking take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It took just a couple minutes. And Vader's little fucking fat crybaby ass was in the lobby. He wasn't anywhere where the scuffle was. And I don't know where the story was, but I've heard a few people's other stories, and they're not even close. The one person I think the stories, what I've heard from people saying it's got a close story to it, would be Scorpio. And I think he was actually looking out the door. But, he wasn't. He was just looking at the door. If he felt safe or, thought he should have stepped in and done something, he didn't. He was just watching it. Now, so that's the only person I know that had that close of a view of it. And I guarantee if you asked him to, it didn't take 10 minutes. Now,
we did actually ask Scorpio about it, and he only told us, he didn't go into the details about it. He only went into about a 2-minute version and just basically said what you said he saw.
Yeah, that's what it was, Devin. It happened so fast, and don't tip our hand into it or get into it right now, but it really did. It was a knock on the door. The guy came out attacking me. I hit him one time. He went down. The scissors got in my hand, and then that's the rest of the story.
And the other thing is, there's always been this rumor around that you would leave wrestling for softball. Where did that all come from?
All right, that wasn't true either. What happened on that was this. Started back a long time ago when I worked for WCW. All right, I had my lung surgery where I had a hole in my lung. They had to cut part of my lung away, so I lost a lot of weight, almost 70 pounds. So I was gaining my weight back, and I flew in. They looked at me. Actually, they had Terry Funk fly in one time to look at me. And Devin, I didn't even know I could drive that day, but I was scared not to drive because I was afraid I was going to lose my job. So I picked him up at the airport. We made one loop around the airport, and I dropped him off. And I don't know what Terry Funk said, but they didn't fire me or didn't make a big deal about me being that skinny. So I put my weight on, went to see them. They looked at me and said, no, we want you to put a little more weight on. So I go back home, and I'm just, I'm working out every day, eating 15 times a day and working out 2 or 3 times a day. And so during my time off, I played a little softball. And then, I'm only guessing at this point, but I think it was Jerry Lawler. Of course, he played a lot of softball, and he saw me out there all the time. And all of a sudden, the office calls me and says, what the fuck are you doing playing softball? I said, well, man, I wasn't told not to play. I was told to put on some weight. All right, so Ole was the booker. He said, okay, for your punishment, they're going to have you come in, and you're going to put Lex Luger over in 5 seconds. Now, Devin, you got to realize I was either out for 7 to 8 months. When somebody's paying me, big money to sit at home, that 30 seconds, I probably got paid $200,000 for that. So I'm not going to worry about putting Lex over. That's something I never worried about, is putting people over. All right, so that's where it started. And then the next time it came about was when I had, I guess everybody knows the story that I had my fill with the WWF at the time, and I told Vince I wasn't going to be there anymore. And it took me about 3 or 4 months to get out of my contract where I could go back to WCW. And during that time, I played some softball. So those are the 2 times I played softball when I wasn't wrestling. Any other time than that never happened. I played when I came home on my days off, but it never affected the business, But that's the deal. It just got blown out of proportion. And again, it probably started off someone stooging me off like Lawler, who a little jealous, and then I don't know why somebody would worry about me playing softball, but they did. And then, and if you think about it, a lot of people will say, well, Sid, you're an athlete, you hurt yourself, and I understand that. But I wasn't playing the field. I was only DHing, and, you really don't get hurt doing that, slow pitch softball. So, but that's where it went to. That's how it all got, Devin, is, those two incidences.
Do you still play at all in your spare time for fun?
I did. I haven't played in the last couple of years. I've just been too busy. And then last time I did play a couple of years ago, I tweaked my hamstring, and I said, you know what? As hard as I work out, I'm not going to do that. And I was, this actually was more than this a couple of years ago. This was a couple of years after I broke my leg. And I was able, just getting back going pretty good, and I tweaked my hamstring. I said, no, I'm not going to play anymore. Now, I thought about playing recently in like a 50 and over class, I know I dominate that.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm not kidding, man. Especially these bats they have today. I mean, these 115-pound kids are hitting home runs, So it'd be a lot of fun. And one of the things I do over at that place I box at, they have those big tires and sledgehammers and different size sledgehammers, and that's what I actually do. I work on seeing, if I could get my bat speed up, and I know I could.
That's pretty impressive. I could just imagine you nailing those balls out of the field with all
Devin,
the power.
and I'm not exaggerating. A lot of people say I am, but when we used to go to autograph signings, in this area, not just this area, but mostly in this area, people would come to me, and that's all they had was, man, I seen you hit a softball one time like 5,000 feet. Now, I know I hit some legitimate shots at 500 feet with a softball, and that's a pretty hard deal to do. But I didn't count my home runs, Devin, unless they went over the light poles. I didn't count them just over the fence. I wanted them to go over the light poles, and that's no exaggeration. I hit so many over those light poles, and I also could hit, left and right-handed, and that always was fun to do too.
And I've heard lately in the Arkansas area you've been doing a different gimmick with a mask.
Yeah, I have. I tell you what it was is I had this idea, and what it was is a little bit to do with this silly election, and I used that too. But no, it was just something I'd come up with. That friend of mine, his name is Barry Norman. He's a writer, and a guy named Peter Zell. There's a thing called Briggs-Meyer protocols, like. If you had, like in my case, you had a bad leg, well, they can put a chip in your brain, and they could pretend, not pretend that you would have that pain no longer. Well, we were doing something like that, and we was having my buddy Barry send in little clips to this place in Osceola, MCW, to show that we were trying that. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, I didn't do but just a few weeks of it, and the people went crazy for it. I never walked into a place I had so much heat, and I was a big-time babyface there for the last few years. But I did what it was, I said I did the operation. What it was, I told the people, I said, and this is when I was still a babyface, I said, the only way I can wrestle anymore is I have this operation. And to have this operation, I'd have to take science over faith. That means over God. And I was going to call myself Israel. When Israel, fought with God, he got a bad hip out of the deal. Remember that?
Yeah.
All right, well, I told everybody I gave God the bad hip, Just, then I took on it started working. I started taking on Donald Trump personality. And I would take off the hat, my mask, to act like Donald Trump or talk like that until, some of the people would get back in the back of the bus, like the Mexican people. There weren't any Mexicans there, however. But I would say things like that and just, I'm the boss, and I bought the place. And everybody had, and I gave him like 3 more weeks, and we was going to shut the doors. And, man, I had a great time with that character. Is actually one I would like to see go to the WWE. It would be a really good one.
Right. So right now, I guess with your old Sid Vicious character, you're kind of doing your last loop around the places that you've wrestled throughout the years, but you wouldn't mind coming back with a new character like that.
Right. Well, see something like this too, Devin. And I'm not tipping my hat, but this would be something where with that operation, I would totally cover myself when no one could see me, and what I'd actually do is I'd do as much as I could myself to get the character over, but I'd actually be putting someone in the character that way they would have a length, they could do something with it with someone, who knows that my knee or my back or something don't go out. But I could take this, get it over to the point where I know how to get over in this business. And if anyone wants to argue with me with that, they can argue with me. But as far as this business is, I know how to get over it probably as well as anybody, if not better than anyone. As long as I've gotten the range to get over. And I think this character is a great character to get over, too, because the whole deal why I wear the hockey mask and the shoulder pads is not to protect myself from the people I work against, is to protect myself from myself, because I can now hurt myself since I don't feel pain anymore. And, of course, I wear the shin guards. Of course, I'm kicking people with the shin guards and the stuff. So, again, it's a great heel deal where you say, I'm really using this for myself to protect myself from you people, but I'm actually cheating, and that's what's so cool about it. It sounds a little far-fetched, and I even told WWE about it a couple years ago. They said, man, that's too far off, out of the, too far out. And I don't think it is anymore. This
not when they have people dressed in rabbit suits wrestling and stuff like that.
And you got that Yokomura, whatever his name is, breathing out his mouthpiece like that. But it's still, there's just a really bunch of bad things there. So I'd really given up hope to even think about it. I guess it's Mark Carano. I guess our wires got crossed. He was had called me, and we were going to talk on the phone, and I was going to drive to Nashville when they were doing TV and sit there and talk to him. But they never contacted my lawyer back, and maybe they wanted to wait for another date to do it. So I'm still waiting to hear from them because they know the idea. They got an idea of it. But I just haven't heard back from them.
Why do you think that there's no real new major stars that have crossed over into the mainstream in recent years? I mean, The Undertaker's just retired. They really have John Cena now as like the big major star, and I guess The Rock, who's only occasionally appearing.
Right.
But none of the young guys have really become a big mega star. Like you were a big draw, and back when you were a big draw, there was numerous guys like you that were.
Well, there was a bunch of guys. Even let's just go back to Ric Flair. Even though Ric Flair didn't have the body and stuff, he was still a good draw. You had Randy Savage. It was a good draw. And those were top guys that weren't really top guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
They could work on top, but they could work under top and still be top guys. We don't have even guys like that either. We got a lot of guys that, first and second match guys, but we don't have a lot of main eventers. Now, I don't know, Devin, if that's from, the business is the state it's in because there's no territories. I cannot help to think that through the whole United States and through Canada, there's not some guys, people still interested in wrestling. That was one thing they asked me, if I'd be willing to go down to their school in Florida and try to help some of these other guys learn how to get over. When they've asked me that a couple of times, so that's why I came up with this idea. Well, I can help somebody. I can actually get them, and that was my pitch to them was that I can give you me the day before I broke my leg, but I didn't tell them how. I just told them that part, meaning that I take someone that's similar built to me that can hide in the same costume I'm wearing and get over it, and I could teach him how to walk like me, how to hit like me, how to talk like me, and before it's all over, what I'd like to have done is where we have brought in a character that would be in a wheelchair, just like the original movie Psycho. Well, that person in the wheelchair would actually be me.
Yeah.
And then I would also play the other character too, where they wouldn't think that was me. But then when it got revealed, then it would be, that other guy was doing the work the whole time. I didn't do any of the work. So it looked like this guy has really taken over the old Psycho Sid character, or he's just getting over. You don't have to say he's Psycho Sid. Just say, hey, this is the monster that, and Sid's been doing it from the wheelchair. And I think if they want somebody how to get over, and you could take somebody with them 7 days a week, and I can tell you how to walk and how to step and do everything else and how to hit and how to look and how to, turn to the crowd and every little thing it takes, I think that would be a really great way to helping someone get over.
And what would your best advice be for like a young wrestler that needs to learn how to get over, just in general, if they're listening to this?
Honestly, you want to take a lot of people's advice that you trust and look at things, and then you'll know, Devin, for me, when I did things, you could feel the people. They'll tell you. That's where you find out, Devin. And what happened, this is what's happening to the WWE a little bit. They're programmed to, they know every step they're going to take now, right? They know every word they're going to do in their interview, and before the matches, they know the whole match now, and they step it all out before every night. They're told not to get over, like, don't beat this guy up too much, and you don't beat him up too much. Well, that's what's stopping people from getting over. Not all of it, but that's a big part of it. So if I was handcuffed in a match like that, and I saw an opportunity where I could get over by kicking a guy in the stomach or something, and they didn't tell me to do that, and if I did that and then got in trouble, I can't get over.
Yeah.
You know, just like, you know, I don't know. It's like when people come up with ideas, Devin, and this is what they're doing so much now. Not that I watch it a lot, but when I do watch this, what I see. And I'll give you an example. Those vaudevillain guys. All right, you know, they came out with that silly thing that they're going to look like they're black and white for a while and then, you know, switch, you know, film to make it look back and forth. And when they got into that, I remember it was them in the New Day, they were, and somebody else, they were arguing around this homemade time machine that was made out of a cardboard box. Well, when people do things like that, Devin, they say, okay, we're going to take the vaudevillains, which we don't know. We're going to name them vaudevillains, but we're not going to know what the fuck we're going to do with them. And there's a, I don't know what it is. My buddy Barry said, he's told me this, but when people come up, have this idea, just like the character Oz that time with Kevin Nash, well, we're going to make him 7 foot tall, but after they brought him down, they didn't know what they were going to do with it afterwards. So then you're stuck like they were with those vaudevillains, whether you're getting silly segments like they were with the New Day. But this is the thing is, it's not the guys' fault. Those guys are all working their butts off. You know, it's the product that they're making those guys go through. You know, who would have a cheap goddamn time box out there made of a cardboard box? That just doesn't make any sense. You know, one thing Vince told me 100 years ago, well, not 100 years ago, almost. He said, if it's negative, just don't do it. Well, that's not Vince doing it, I'm sure. But some of that writing is forcing the guys not to be able to get over. And that's the thing is, you know, you have to be an opportunist too. And a lot of people, myself, were opportunists, and that's one way I got over. If I seen an opportunity, I did it. You know, I didn't mind, you know, saying, hey, this wasn't really in the plans, but, man, the people were getting into this, you know. And that's one of the reasons, I believe, Devin, that's why the guys aren't getting over like they used to. That, and there's just not a lot of guys out there, and I'm not trying to be critical, but people like Sami Zayn, he really works his butt off. He looks like a slinky out there, and I'm sure that's what they've told him to look like. But it's just horrible. Horrible.
And he has a very plain look to him, too. Like,
well, it's just there's so many got so many plain looks. But they're all technically, which the business didn't have this years before, they're all technically really sound. And they, for their interviews, they're all really sound.
They just don't have the character.
Just they don't have any, like they don't have any sunshine sticking out, you know, beaming out of their souls. You know what I mean? It's nobody really like that there, you know?
Yeah. For your promos, I'm guessing you just came up with them on your own and you didn't have writers when you were in WWE?
No. I did a lot of reading, Devin, a lot of it through horror books. But I did a lot of reading. Believe it, sometimes I got stuff out of a Billy Graham daily devotional, you know, because there were serious things in there when people were dying and stuff. And so, but I just did a lot of reading. If I seen a word or a paragraph that really stuck out that would trigger other things to me, that's what I'd use. And I'd have you know, 2 or 3 books with all kind of things highlighted. And they said, we want to interview about this. So I just looked through my book, or I remembered something I'd read that day. And go, okay, I got it, you know. And I think that's something too. That's why I think this new thing would work, because I think if I was a manager in a wheelchair and finally got exposed, you're not going to have many managers that are as credible as I am with the mic, you know. Especially if I got a monster the size that I was before, I think that would be a hell of a combination.
Yeah. And now in your spare time, I guess you told me the other day you bought a tractor, so I guess you must have a big piece of property.
Well, I got that, and I've got a landscaping business. Pretty much it's just with tractors and doing a lot of bush hogging, and I got some commercial property and some residential property. I've got a really good crew, and of course, you know, before I got into wrestling, I was a farmer, And this brings me back to my days like that, Devin. This is no kidding. There's nothing better for me in the morning. Get up at 3:30, go to the gym, be home by 6:30, and be on my tractor heading to the field about 6:45. That to me was one of the greatest feelings in the world. Is, I already had half my day behind me, and the sun rises, and I'm going out there, and I'm starting the second part of my day at 6:30 when everybody else is still asleep. And that's what you get as a farmer, is that kind of gratification. And I love those days like that. I love being out in the field like that, and it's been a lot of fun doing that.
What's your opinion of Brock Lesnar, since he's also a farmer? What do you think of him as a wrestler?
You know what? I've not really seen him honestly do a whole lot of wrestling in the ring. I think without a question, he's the most over guy in this business.
Yeah.
Without a question. And he doesn't really have to do a lot to be the most over guy. Why he's not doing his own interviews, I really don't know. I think he's a good talker every chance he gets. Maybe they're going to wait till he turns babyface against Paul, and then let him do his own talking after that. That's why I'm sort of guessing. But he's really credible with his interviews and his facial expressions. And I don't know. This is something too, and I hate saying this, is probably going to get me in trouble. This is what happens to me. There's called gatekeepers in this business, Devin. Gatekeepers are people that don't really want people to get over, and they have their own reasons for it. And I don't know if that's the reason for. Maybe they're making, saying, Brock, we don't need you to talk. You never know why. But I think just those couple things he did in UFC, where he went to the cage and foamed like a crazy animal. I mean, that's what sells tickets.
Yeah.
And I think he could get even better if they let him stretch out a little bit, and maybe he's just not uncomfortable doing interviews, but he looks real good doing them.
Well, apparently, I don't know if you've heard, but he might be going back to UFC, because I guess UFC had not the greatest year for business, so they're looking at bringing back some names like Lesnar and Ronda Rousey, and he's entered himself back into the UFC drug testing pool, I guess. So
now, all right, for someone like, say, Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar, excuse me, you think, because you know what it is, those guys that owned it sold out to that new big company, and they're having the same problem that everybody else is having. They just can't find the new talent. And where I train at Memphis Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, the owner said that's what the deal is. There's a lot of people signing up for these classes, but there is not a lot of people coming in to be fighters anymore. And the guy that runs our boxing class, he might have only really one person a day that really interested in being a fighter. So that's one of the problems. So I wonder if maybe Brock could do that and say, okay, I'm going to get paid per fight, but you're going to pay me just to be around. With this new company, he might be able to get something like that.
Yeah, I guess only time will tell. But I'll kept you on the line enough. I'll let you get back to your day. Thanks very much for talking to us. And anyone listening to this, August 5th, the Earl Armstrong Arena in Ottawa. Tickets are available online at Ticketweb.ca or at both Compact Music Ottawa Locations, 206 and 785 Bank Street, or buy them at the door. And all the information is at greatnorthwrestling.ca if anyone wants to find out more information about the show. And Sid, could you finish off by giving us a short promo about what's going to happen to your opponent, Paul Rosenberg, next Saturday night, August 5th in Ottawa?
Paul Rosenberg, it's real simple, and this is the same story I'll tell everybody. I won't make this story any different for you than I would make it for anyone else. When I get to Ottawa, I'm going to lift you up, and I'm going to power bomb you to the ground, and when the dust clears, I'll be standing there over you, and you will look up at me, Paul, and you'll say, Sid, you are the master, and you are the ruler of the world. And I'll say, Paul, you are exactly right.
GreatNorthWrestling.ca is coming to the Earl Armstrong Arena in Ottawa, Saturday, August 5th for our 10th anniversary Super Show. Headlining the card is multiple-time world champion Psycho Sid Vicious, who is wrestling in Ottawa as part of his retirement tour when he faces Paul Rosenberg. The Canadian title will be on the line when champion Wes Briscoe of Aces and Eights Quebec is challenged by Ottawa's own Hannibal the Death Dealer, with special guest enforcer referee, martial artist movie star Alain Moussi from the Kickboxer Vengeance and Kickboxer Retaliation films. The three-time WWE Tag Team Champion Quebecer Jean-Pierre Lafitte will make his long-awaited return to the Outaouais when he faces Canada's strongest wrestler, Maximum Testosterone. The first ever Great North Wrestling Women's Champion of Canada will be crowned in a four-way ladies ladder match between Vanessa Craven, Lady Yasmin, the Black Widow Eve, and CC Gallamy. Plus, a triple threat tag team tables match with Freak Nation, squaring off against the Heartthrobs and Aces and Eights. Also on the card will be the spoiler, Jebediah Tatum, ring announcer Dylan Black, meet and greets, and more. Advanced tickets start at just $15 or buy 4 for $40 online through Ticketweb.ca or both Compact Music Ottawa, 206 and 785 Bank Street locations. Ticket prices increase $5 at the door. Don't miss out on this historic night of action and excitement, Saturday, August 5th in Ottawa. Visit GreatNorthWrestling.ca for more details.